Good morning and welcome to Live with Admissions. My name is Gabby Lippy. I am the Director of Admission at St. Joseph Notre Dame High School and graduate of the SJ&D class of 2008. I am joined today by the other members of our enrollment team, Mrs. Eileen Graybeal, Director of Enrollment Management and Alumni Parent, and Mr. Sean Obligacion, Admission Associate and graduate of the SJ&D class of 2015. So before we start, we are going to begin in prayer as we do every morning here at SJ&D. And in this season of distance learning, prayer is led by our campus ministry team. So please join us in prayer.
SJ&D. Today is Monday, October 5th, and it's the feast day of St. Boniface. Please put yourself in the presence of God as we begin our prayer. In the name of the Father, Son, Holy Spirit. Amen. Dear Lord, this morning I pause and bless my day. Today is a gift of opportunity for me to reach my highest potential. I honor this opportunity with love and gratitude. I forgive myself and others for past mistakes and believe in my heart that I will carry love with me as I embark on this wonderful new experience. In your name, amen. In the name of the Father, Son, Holy Spirit, amen. Saint Joseph and Hail Mary, Mother of God, pray for us. Bye, have a great day.
Hi everyone. This Monday, set aside some time to sit in the presence of God and reflect on all the blessings He has bestowed upon you. Have an amazing day.
Great, so great way to start off the day. So our goal with our Live with Admissions series is to give you as prospective families a connection with key members of our SJ&D community. And today our focus will be on counseling at SJ&D, and we are excited to be joined by Mr. John Gunty, who is our Director of Counseling. But before we meet him, I'd like to introduce you to a group of SJ&D students who are part of our ambassador leadership team and will be engaging with us throughout the hour today. And I'm going to ask them now to each share their name, their grade, the school they attended previously, and why they chose SJ&D as a high school choice. So we'll go ahead and start with Amelie.
Hi, my name's Amelie Ritter. I'm a senior. The previous school I attended was a French and American school in Berkeley, and the reason I chose SJ&D was because of the really good sense of community as well as their rigorous courses.
Thank you. And Claire.
Hi, I'm Claire Nocon. I'm also a senior. I previously attended St. Joseph's Elementary School. The reason I chose SJ&D is because my siblings went there and my parents really liked the education they got, the environment, and everything about it.
And Ellie.
I'm Ellie Jarnsapipa, and I'm also a senior. And I went to CCS, Chinese Christian School, or now Coastline Christian School in middle school. And the reason I chose SJ&D is because of the rigorous educational opportunity, and also because of the clubs and extracurriculars they offered, which really attracted me. And my sister went there, so.
Awesome. And Israel?
Hello, my name is Israel Fuentes Juarez. I previously attended St. Elizabeth's Elementary School in Oakland, and a reason I chose SJ&D is, like many of my peers said, rigorous academics and lots of time to socialize.
And finally, Kellen.
Hi, my name is Kellen Chen. I am a senior, and I attended St. Anthony's Elementary School in Oakland before coming to SJ&D. And I chose SJ&D to go to high school because my parents really liked the campus and the location and stuff like that. And I also really enjoyed the small, tight-knit community there.
Awesome. Well, thank you, students. And our students will be engaging with us in our Q&A today. So please feel free to drop any questions that you have for them or for our Director of Counseling, Mr. Gunty, down in the Q&A feature, and we'll make sure to answer those. But now I'd love to introduce Mr. John Gunty. John, we would love if you could just share a little bit about yourself. And John, there you go.
Common Zoom mistake, I'm sorry. So my name is John Gunty. I grew up in California, in Chicago, and moved to California in 1979. Ever since then, I've been involved in working in high schools in many different capacities. I was a theology teacher. I started the Holocaust Studies program here at our school. And I also have been counselor for most of those 40 years. I've been at St. Joe's for going on 21 years, and I'm very, very happy to be here. It became home for me. And as a lot of the students have already said, it really drew me because of the sense of community.
Awesome. And as I mentioned, please feel free to ask any questions down in the Q&A. And our Director of Enrollment Management, Ms. Eileen Graybiel, is going to start us off.
Good morning, Mr. Gunty. Thanks for joining us today, and thank you, families, for joining us as well. So, Mr. Gunty, can you tell us about the counseling program at SJND and why the 4-year student-counselor relationship is important?
Thank you for that question. So first of all, we have approximately 450 to 460 students in the last several years, and we have 4 full-time counselors. So easy math is that the ratio is under 120. And that means that a normal average for a public high school in California can be even over 500, 600. And for private schools in the East Bay, it's often more like 200. So that ratio obviously makes it possible for us to be with our students more and to support them more directly. The idea of having the same counselor for 4 years is that obviously we get to know them very well. And by the time that they're seniors, and all these, obviously all of our students have as a goal to go to college. And so when they're seniors and they start applying to colleges, we know them well enough to write really detailed recommendation letters that obviously create an advantage for them when they're applying to selective schools. It also helps to have that consistency of support. We know them year to year to year, and obviously as we get to know them better and they get to know us better, the trust builds and the many dimensions of our support can expand. We call ourselves personal academic counselors, which means exactly what it says. And then we also have a full-time dedicated college counselor who works with all of the students and especially with the juniors and seniors, but I'll say more about that later. And we also have a dedicated learning services counselor who works with all students who come in with documented differences, learning differences, and we'll talk about that some more later too. So that's why we have such a comprehensive team, and that's why we feel it's really important to have a low ratio and to stay with the student for those 4 years. Another thing, having been here 20 years, it also is fun to know the SIBs, and sometimes it's 1, 2, 3, I think 4 right now for one of my families. It's fun.
Great, thank you very much. So students, we're going to ask you these questions, so please feel free to step in, all of you or individually. How and when does your counselor reach out to you, and how and when do you reach out to your counselor?
I can start us off.
Okay.
So usually at the beginning of a school year, our counselors will reach out and kind of ask us how many times we would like to meet with them. It could be quarterly checkups, semester checkups, more than that. It's really just dependent on your needs. So that's really nice because it's kind of like customizable to whatever is best for you. And then, so as I said, they reach out that way at the beginning of the year. And then if you need anything during the year, you can email them, set up other meetings with them. So that's really nice.
Great. Thank you, Emily.
Yeah, for myself, I've like throughout my high school, I would always check with my counselors more of like when I'm planning my classes. One thing really nice that I liked that the counselors did is that they gave us this like sheet of paper where we had to plan out our classes. Like I think we started like our freshman year. Yeah, it was our freshman year. And then like it would kind of change over time, but it was just like nice to be able to like kind of plan ahead. And I remember meeting like especially second semester, I would meet with my counselors a lot to help plan out my schedule for the year. And more recently, I've been meeting with Miss Yee, and just one thing really nice is since the school is smaller, we're allowed to send our college application essays that we've been writing to her to get some feedback and how to improve it. And I sent one of mine, and it was really helpful just to like have the college counselor even have the time to be able to do that. That was really great, and she gave like a really detailed like write up for me, like you need to adjust this and change this. But I love that aspect with the counselors.
Thank you, Ellie, very much. Any of the other students?
I'll go. Going off of what like Omni had said, I really like how like accessible I think our counselors are, like whether we want to reach out or they reach out to us. I think that like the way that they schedule like meetings or however often you need to go, it's really like, yeah, it is like fitting to your needs, but they're also like, you know that they will always be there. And like, despite like how busy they are, I feel like they always like find some way to like make time for you. And I personally like think that that's like super helpful because sometimes like things just kind of happen. And like, especially like while we were in school, there would be like those days where you needed like just like a mental break, or if you like had stayed up really late like doing homework and you couldn't finish a homework assignment and you were just like really overwhelmed. I found it like really helpful just to like go to your counselor's office and just like tell them that like I need a mental break before like everything just gets like too overwhelming. And I also really like how you can like, for me, like they don't really like force you to like have to talk to them, but they kind of always tell you that they'll always be there.
Great. Thank you, Kim. I will now turn this over to Mr. Obogosion.
Thank you, Mrs. Graybill. This next question, we're going to go ahead and ask Mr. Gunty. Outside of one-on-one meetings with students, what are some other things that you as counselors do to kind of engage with the students?
The biggest thing that we do besides the one-on-one meetings is something called Counselors in the Classroom. It's a very extensive 4-year curriculum that is, when we're actually on campus, we are going into teachers' regular classrooms, English, social studies, theology, PE, health, and taking that time to present all this information that is supportive of their students' social and emotional wellness. It's very comprehensive. It's very developmentally appropriate. That is, for the freshmen, we're doing a certain set of things, and it builds on that from there, year to year. A lot of the topics we are dealing with have to do with things that more and more are becoming important needs of support for students in terms of their success academically. As a college prep school, obviously, we're very, very interested in supporting their academic success. That's why Ellie's talking about the 4-year plan and things like that. And for going to college, of course. But the other part is just giving them the tools and the information that they need and the opportunity to discuss some of these other issues. Topics that are covered throughout those 4 years in the CICs, Counselors in the Classroom, are stress and stress management, drug and alcohol use, and sexuality education. As I said, each of those lessons is very carefully designed for the appropriate grade level, and they're integrated throughout the 4 years so that they build on each other. We also have had times where we really feel a strong need to just deal directly with the issues of stress management and time management. And so we have workshops like that at the beginning of the year and throughout the year as we see the need arise. The counseling department has also been doing a lesson, a CIC, about diversity and inclusion. One of our first lessons with the freshmen is called SJND as a Welcoming Community. And as the students are saying, we're very proud of the community that we have and the love and support that exists with the students, with the families, with the teachers and staff. But that is something that needs to be intentionally built. And we deal with issues of diversity, inclusion, and microaggression, and begin right from 9th grade to stress the fact that we are proud that we're a loving community, that we're a family, and that it takes a lot of intention and support. As you probably will learn if you learn more about our school, we probably have at least 60 different middle schools that the students are coming from. And so when they come together, they might be coming from all sorts of different places. But right from the beginning, we work with the students, mostly in those CICs and then continuously in other ways, about making this a really loving community and a safe place for everyone.
Thank you so much, Mr. Gunty.
You're welcome.
For the students regarding CICs now, we would love to hear some of the things that you have learned from our counselors in CICs, or sort of elaborating some of your experiences with CICs. So why don't we go ahead and start with Clay.
Hi, yeah. So the CICs, like Mr. Gunty said, they change throughout your first 4 years. Like as students start to mature, more topics can be talked about. So like this year we did some CICs in our homeroom, so they were school-wide, and they went over things like stress, anxiety, things like when school's overwhelming, how to talk to your teachers, how to communicate with your peers, that kind of thing. Other CICs we've done involve like consent, things like things you might need to know on a college campus because it can be a little more dangerous, that kind of thing. One thing I found really nice is for the more sensitive subjects like that, sometimes the girls and the boys are split up, so we can talk to a female counselor one-on-one and the males can talk to a male counselor one-on-one. And then we all came back together to kind of share both sides, so everyone was more comfortable talking to their counselor and their peers.
Awesome.
Thank you, Claire. We just did one of those today with the juniors. I just left a group of boys before I came here.
We can go ahead and hear from Israel as well.
Yeah, so definitely counselors in the classroom is something, it's one of those things where what you put into it, you get out of it. And so the more you're engaged and the more the class participates, the more you get out of it, the more you learn. Like Claire was saying, we learned about like consent and how college is a different environment. And so the counselors in the classroom kind of is like a prep course for the college experience and what to expect on the college campus. You know, now that you have all that freedom, it can be somewhat a little bit dangerous, but the counselors are there to help us, to help guide us and, you know, teach us right from wrong. And as Mr. Gunty was saying, they hold various workshops on like time management skills and other success skills that are necessary to, you know, do well in high school and even in college.
Thank you, Israel. I want to jump on that and just say we also have for the juniors a Christian morality course, and there's other ways that the curriculum, especially in the theology courses, are based on values and good decision making. So I know when you guys talk about college, you think about it in scary ways and you use the word dangerous, but we as counselors are really interested in the decision-making processes for teens around risk-taking. So, you know, anything can be a little bit risky, but it's how is someone supported in making really, really good decisions for themselves regarding how to manage all that. And our emphasis in the counseling department, and especially in the CICs, is really supporting every single student in feeling like they can make good decisions for their own well-being, for their own health and wellness and safety.
Thank you so much, everyone, for those answers. I will go ahead and pass it on to Ms. Flippy.
Hi there. We did have a question in the Q&A about kind of Bible or theology courses that are required at SJ&D. And so our students do take theology, as we call it, so religious studies, for all 4 years. So every student, every semester is in a theology class. And in the freshman year, every student starts with understanding Catholic Christianity. Not all of our students are Catholic, so kind of providing a foundational course to get everyone on the same page with understanding kind of the history of Catholicism and Christianity. And then students do study scripture, and then as they move into the upper division, we'll take elective theology courses. So they can choose between world religions, religious themes in film and literature, ethics of good and evil. We have a senior kind of social justice class as well. So kind of a variety in the upper division, but yes, required each year. Thank you for that question.
Can I add to that, please, Ms. Lippy? When I speak to the freshmen and I do the intake interview, I often ask the students who are coming from public schools what it's like for them to be in Catholic schools, especially to be in the theology classes. And they all just seem to really appreciate the fact that this is being presented them for their information, so that they'll be more comfortable and they'll be able to understand some of the stuff that's going on around them. And that seems to be really helpful without, with them being able to be free with their own background in theology or whatever it is for them.
Ms. Lippy, I'd like to add one other piece to that. I've had 2 children graduate from St. Joseph Notre Dame High School, and we are not Catholic. And what my children will tell you, both as a college graduate and in college, is that what they were really grateful for this program was broadening their knowledge and learning more tolerance of other beliefs, tolerance of other practices, but also learning more about their thoughts and more about the Catholic religion because they were in a Catholic school. So it was very beneficial to them over in the big picture.
Great, thank you both. For Mr. Gunty, in our last information session, we had quite a few parents and students asking about our how we provide accommodations as a school for students with documented learning differences. So just from your perspective, kind of how does SJ&D support these students?
Thank you for that question too. First of all, we have a super competent, very compassionate, caring learning services counselor. Her name is Marianne Stair. And before she came to us, she was at Israel's Old School at St. Liz Elementary. And she was there for 20 years, and she helped write curriculum for the diocese on learning differences and accommodations, learning plans. Anyway, she's been with us for quite a long time now. And the program we established and she has improved is basically, we want to know as soon as a student is interested in our school, whether or not there is a documented learning difference. And I know some families might be hesitant to share that information for some reason. They think it might somehow disadvantage them or something, but that's definitely not the case. And in fact, it's so much more helpful for us to know as early as possible so that we can engage with the family and talk about the situation for that particular student and how SJ&D might be a good fit for them. So during the 8th grade interviews, we definitely have a special focus on those students whose families have identified the fact that they have a documented learning difference. And that's part of the original conversation from very early on. We assess with them what their needs might be in high school, because obviously high school can be, especially a high school like ours, college prep high school, can be significantly more challenging than middle school. So we look at what they might need to be successful given their situation, their strengths, their diagnosed and documented learning difference, and what we can offer as a school. So for those students who are accepted into SJ&D with documented learning differences and who decide to come to our school, Mrs. Stair works directly with those families based on the documentation we have, based on the information that we got from the teachers in middle school, to create an individualized learning plan for that student, complete with an identification of their strengths, their challenges, and the learning accommodations that they're entitled to at our high school. This plan is a formal plan. It's very carefully designed. It's very individually designed, and it is immediately provided to the teachers of that student at the beginning of the school year so that that the teachers are all familiar with that plan and can collaborate with making it happen. So this can be a technical process, and so that's why we really want to talk to families individually about what is your student situation. Some students are coming from public schools with IEPs, and those are legal documents. It's a very similar process, but we have a way of making it quite individualized, and we definitely have a way of enforcing those accommodations with the students and the teachers in the courses that they're taking. The learning services counselor cooperates really, really closely with the family. She's a very strong advocate and support for that student, and she teaches that student self-advocacy with the teachers in every single one of the courses. So it's very thorough. I'm very proud of the work that we do, and if you have questions about that, I can answer them now. But for now, I can just say it's a great, great program, and it is something that we are proud of because it does help students get into whatever, they have college goals, and we're very proud of those results as well, as Mrs. Graybill could tell you. But many, many other students have gone through our school and have successfully matriculated to college and have become strong advocates for their own needs in the new environment.
And we have a question on live. Generally, how many students in the incoming 9th grade class has a documented learning difference?
Somewhere around 12 to 14 per year.
Thank you.
Also, I just wanted to say real quick that sometimes my sister, not me, but my sister who just recently graduated and she's going to UCSD, you discover you have something that hinders your learning or your test taking abilities during high school. And one thing I found really great was seeing all the support from the counselors and stuff through my sister, going through her process. And just being able to get extra testing time after that because she has bad test anxiety. So that's something the counselors really help support her with.
Thank you. And so another important part of that is not just within our school, but for SAT and ACT when the time comes to take those tests as well, to apply for those accommodations and to receive them for those tests.
Yeah, thank you so much for that, Ellie. And curious to know from all of our students, kind of when you find that you are needing support, help, or guidance, both academically and personally, kind of what do you do? What resources do you seek out at SJD? We can maybe start off with Amelie.
Yeah. So usually when I'm struggling or I need help, I do always turn to my counselor. I think something that was super, super nice was sometimes I had specific courses I really wanted to take but weren't, when AP French wasn't offered yet, I did want to take that test. And so with my counselor, I was able to still schedule it outside of school to be able to take it, which was super nice. I think also one thing I want to touch on was with scheduling. Sometimes your classes, you can't fit them in or it's not exactly what you want. My counselor was super helpful with trying to find a way for me to still be able to take those classes and make a really individualized schedule for me. So I'm really thankful for that.
Awesome. Claire, what about you?
Yeah, I agree with Amelie that I'll go to my counselor if I need help. And if I don't go to my counselors, I just try and go to my teachers themselves if I'm struggling with stuff. A lot of the teachers come to campus. I mean, now obviously we can't, but they come to campus early so you can sit in their classroom before school, do problems with them, solve whatever problem you're having, or they'll stay after school. And then we have collaboration. So that's a good time where you can schedule a meeting with your teacher. And then I know for the underclassmen, there is just peer tutoring. So if you need help and you don't want to go to your teacher, you can get consistent tutoring from other upperclassmen students who have taken the classes you're taking now.
Awesome. Kellen, what about you?
For me personally, I agree with Amelie about the whole scheduling thing. At the beginning of distance learning, I had scheduled to take a placement test to get into an AP classroom. This was while we were still in school before the whole lockdown and everything. But we never really got to it. And then my counselor emailed me about if I was still interested in taking it. And I said yes. And so she set up a meeting for me on Zoom so that I could take a placement test during distance learning. And I thought that was really nice how they still like were able to accommodate that, because I thought, oh, I wouldn't be able to take it anymore and I wouldn't be able to get into the class. However, like she was able to sit there with me and guide me through like, or give me the placement test, and then I submitted it, and then she was like, okay, you got in, and then we worked out a whole schedule, and then I had to drop some classes to take this AP class. But I was just kind of really grateful that she was able to still think about that during all that chaos with starting distance learning.
Absolutely. And Israel, finally, what about you? If you're finding you need help, what do you do?
Yeah, like my peer said, I definitely go talk to my counselors or to my teachers when I need a schedule change or need to talk to them. But I've somewhat used them personally, you know, just to talk about things that are going on at home. And Mr. Gunty or Miss Sabia, they're really accommodating. They're there to provide a safe space where you can, you know, let out all your frustrations and, you know, just have someone to talk to, because, you know, holding it inside for a long time can cause like anxiety, stress, and you know, we don't need that, especially with everything that's going on now. And so they're really accommodating, and they're really you know, they just want to help you get better. And so I really find that I really find that amazing.
Awesome. And turning it back over to Mrs. Graybiel.
You're muted, Mrs. Graybiel.
Thank you, Mr. Gunty. So, Mr. Gunty, as a college preparatory high school, how does the counseling department work with students and parents throughout the college application process?
I will try to answer that briefly, but it's very, very thorough. So as the students have just mentioned, we spend a lot of time doing everything we can to make sure that they get the classes they really want and are qualified for. A lot of effort put into that by Mrs. Park, the assistant principal of academics, and by the students themselves, and working with the teachers in the departments. Our students typically want to be challenged, and we as a school absolutely want them to find a schedule that they would like and that would really, really work for them in a good way. Because I think it was Ellie who was talking about the paper, the four-year plan. We have already done that with the freshmen. You're right, Ellie, we started in 9th grade. And that's a very conscious effort to look at our curriculum, look at where the student is coming from in terms of their abilities and their interests, and then think now, 9th grade, 10th grade, all the way through, what is it you're trying to do, especially with regard to college schools, but even just in terms of your interest and how to develop your curiosity for learning. So that starts in 9th grade with our four-year plan. It starts in 9th grade with some really thorough education about graduation requirements for SJND, college entrance requirements for all sorts of schools, and especially what the college entrance requirements are for the schools that are selective as well. So the CICs include not just our work with the social emotional wellness, but also the work that they mentioned, Ms. Yee, who's also amazing, Ms. Sabia, who's also amazing. We do workshops for every single level, a couple times a year at least, that are directly developmentally appropriate for what they need to know about college admissions and how to challenge themselves academically throughout their 4 years. There's standardized testing in all 4 years that are all related to the ACT or the SAT. And when we're able to do that, that will come back, I think, in the spring. And 9th, 10th, 11th, all have standardized tests that we provide to all the students. So they get to practice in those tests that can sometimes be anxiety inducing, but they can also get a sense of what, how they're due on those and what they need to work on to improve. We have college entrance exam workshops during the year, especially for the juniors and the seniors, where we have contractors come on campus and help with those classes, test prep. And then there's a college fair that the sophomores do as part of their English project, where they do research on an individual college and present that to everyone else. We usually do a college visit in 10th grade to a college with everyone so they can get a practice in that. And then the really intense college counseling begins in the second semester of 11th grade, where they're given a lot of time with Miss Yee in the CICs, and they begin to identify how to turn their goals into criteria and how to turn their criteria into targets. So we are hoping that by the end of 11th grade, especially, they already have a very good idea about what schools they want to apply to. And then in senior year, so Allison Yee meets with every single junior one-on-one after all those presentations. And then senior, every year there's something for the parents as well, freshmen, sophomore, juniors, seniors, college nights, financial aid night. And then for the seniors, there's a lot of one-on-one contact with Ms. Yee. As Ellie was talking about, there's advice and guidance about writing these personal statements for the applications. And all the other counselors work with the seniors on that as well. By today, they were supposed to, all the seniors were required to turn in their final list of targets, which I think is really, really a good support for them to be that clear at this point, so that the work that they need to put into the applications will be, they'll have more clarity about what they need to do for that process. Then there's just a lot, every single senior has not just the college counselor, Ms. E, but one of us to help them as well. And as I said before, we're the ones that are going to be writing those letters for them. So that includes workshops for applications. It includes looking at their personal statements. It includes reviewing their list to make sure that it's a good list strategically for them, and that it fits their criteria, whatever it is.
Great, thank you. Students, can you speak to how has SJND supported the beginnings of your college search, or as you've progressed through high school and are now seniors in the case, I think, of all of you, how that has been?
Yeah, I can start. So like Mr. Gunty said, Miss Yee is the college counselor for all of us over the 4 years. And at first I was like, oh my gosh, I'm not gonna be able to get this much help. She has 100 people to help get into college, and they all have 10 colleges they're applying to. But she has been so much more helpful than I expected. I'm applying to a lot of schools. I'm applying to 20 schools, and she was able to go through each school and tell me which ones I might want to apply to early action based on looking at my grades for the 4 years. She's been able to meet with me multiple times to go over that, to talk to my parents, to kind of ease their fears with getting me into college. Any questions I have, she's like gotten back to me in 24 hours. So that's super, super nice.
Great. How about Israel?
Yeah, SGND has really, always said, college begins now from the very first moment that you walk on campus or when you have the first assembly. And, that is really true. Like Mr. Gunty said, they hold various activities throughout all 4 years so you prep for college, and Miss E is really helpful in fostering that kind of growth. But our counselors, they do a fantastic job as well. They develop a list of courses that you should take, and they make you challenge yourself so that you have a good course listing, so that you look good for colleges. And so instead of just taking regular classes, you can they challenge you to take honors or even AP classes to make you more a strong candidate for schools. And so I really feel that encouragement and that support really has helped me in being a target student for some colleges.
Hey, Ellie?
Yeah, like I've been actually, like, I was one of the first people to meet with my college counselor, and one thing I found really helpful is I made a list of all the schools I had, and then so safety, reach, and then target and reach, and then she reviewed it with me and just answered my questions, like on like what major I want to do and like what would be realistic for me and things like that. So that was just something that was really helpful. And like I said, she did review my essay too. And even just throughout high school too, like they would help me like get like different extracurricular opportunities and stuff like that. Like I was able to do, if it weren't for COVID, I would have been in this pep Pepperdine like leadership conference, and the counselors helped me to do that. So
Great, thank you. There's a question in the Q&A that is can be pointed to Mr. Gunty. What experiences do you have with students who have learning differences who also want to play sports? Are sports incompatible with kids who need extra time for homework?
I'd be happy to answer that question, but I might throw it back to you if it's okay.
Yeah, sure.
Just because I would ask her to speak as a mom. Every student is different, and every student has to make their own decisions based on their life and all the activities that, you know, our students are very talented academically, but they have all sorts of other talents too, and not just sports, but our musical program is very demanding and takes a lot of time, and there are other things like that. Or sometimes kids have to work because they have, need to support the family financially, or all sorts of other things. So that's the point. It has to be individually designed, and then there has to be an ongoing process of support and fine tuning. It's like Helen was saying, at one point she changed her mind about taking a class, and Lauren Sabia found a way to make that work. If a student wants a lot of challenge and can fit it in their life in a way that is not going to make them, it's not unhealthy in terms of the stress level, then we encourage them to do that. If they want to also do other things, we encourage them to do that. And then there's this ongoing process of monitoring and adjusting. But I can, in all my years at the school, I know students pretty well. I know students I have known. And if I get to know a student, I can usually gauge pretty clearly in a conversation with them as well what I can advise in terms of what would be a healthy full load. And if we're wrong about that, there are sometimes we can adjust it. But one of the things that happens is, just like an athlete, students learn better time management. It's a training, right? You learn how to do more. And sometimes you get to the point where it's too much, and that's when it's the message, okay, I need to adjust. But stress is not always a bad thing. And sometimes wanting to do more can be a great thing. But in consultation with the family, in consultation with their teachers and how they're doing, and of course the student, him or herself, we try to adjust it as we go. But specifically have learning differences students been able to play sports? Absolutely. And other things too.
I can speak to some of that. As Mr. Gunty mentioned, I have two children who have documented learning differences. And as I mentioned, we're students at St. Joseph Notre Dame High School. One was very into sports, one was very into theater. And what Mr. Gunty said is absolutely correct. They learn life skills because they learn balance. They also, with some diagnoses, depending on what the diagnoses are, for my children, it was better for them to have structured things to do in addition to their schoolwork. That was a physical outlet for them and a kind of an emotional outlet for them. So it was positive in the school's partnership in that I couldn't have asked for more. Just really encouraging them to do what was best for them. And if it was best for them to step back sometimes, or if they needed extra time on a test, which my children did, it never impeded their ability to do other things. And taking it to the next level, going on to college, both of them learned very clearly how to balance their need for schoolwork and also how to advocate for themselves. And I would love to take credit for that as a mother, but it's really much more that the school has grounded them in both their self-worth, kind of being humble and knowing what you can and can't do. And that's really for all students, but it specifically helps in a more detailed way for the students with learning differences. Happy to talk to anybody about that offline as well, if you want to know a life experience from that perspective.
Yeah, and all the students who are here, all 5 of you have been talking about, you're not shy about asking for help. You know where to go. Your teachers are very responsive. The counselors are trying to help you. You have become your own advocates, and that is a really important part of this process as well. And we hopefully, through all the other training you're getting, paying attention to what is unhealthy stress and how to adjust that.
Great. Okay, I'm going to be turning this back to Ms. Lippy.
Great. So we all know that this time of distance learning is not easy. And so for you, Mr. Gunty, how has the counseling department had to kind of adapt and adjust during this period? And kind of, is there anything that you've observed about students during this time?
I'm really proud of what we're doing as a school in terms of distance learning, and maybe the students may help there'll be time to talk about this since all of you guys were here last spring. Last spring, when we were kind of forced into this process without a lot of preparation, the school did a whole lot to train the teachers, and we created a schedule that we thought would be pretty good. And then there was a lot of people involved in a task force from May through the summer talking about how we could make that better, knowing that this year was going to be, at least some of the year, going to be required distance learning. And so I was part of the social-emotional subcommittee of that task force. And I just want to say that we were very thorough in terms of thinking about how can we do this as a good academically rigorous school, and how can we do this in order to support that students just are not overwhelmed or some unhealthy situation based on distance learning and how hard it is to adjust. So I just want to say the schedule itself is better. The one that we have this fall is better than the one we have this spring. And that's been confirmed by almost all the students I've talked to. We built in more flex time, which is breaks. We built in a longer lunch. We built in student activities times. And we made sure that the learning time, each class meets only twice a week for 60 minutes and 90 minutes. So all of those things, the counselors had a very important input into how this year's schedule would be built, and with a lot of attention to everyone's social emotional health and well-being. So I hope the students can speak to that in a little bit. The other part is that now that we've begun, we pay a lot of attention to the requests that we get from teachers when they notice the students don't seem to be very engaged, when they're having trouble with attendance, when they're having trouble with turning in assignments. So we have constant reports directly from the teachers and from Power School reports that we get about, so in other words, we use the evidence to identify who's struggling. And then of course, if a student really wants and needs the help, we're going to hear about that from the student, him or herself, or from their family. So we have time for that one-on-one support, and we're tracking that with the teachers and with the student Power School reports in terms of attendance and how they turn in their work. We're also continuing to do with the CICs, and we're sometimes identifying students who are struggling in that way. We want to expand our support of parents who are also struggling through this time, and we're in conversation with the administration about how the counselors can expand some kind of service directly to the parents as well.
Thank you. And yes, definitely, I think it'd be important for us to hear from each of you students kind of how we know distance learning is challenging. So maybe talk about what some of those challenges have been, and then also how you are staying connected kind of during this period of distance learning. And we can start with Amelie.
Yeah, so I can talk also a little bit in relation to counselors. So one thing for me has been time management, because it's kind of a different setting, so I'm not always at school. So I've been working on that, and I do have some like extra student activities and stuff like that going on. So I met with my counselor one-on-one not too long ago, but what's something that was really nice was her flexibility, because since I had other student activities, it was kind of hard and I had to cancel and kind of reschedule, and we were able to find a way to still meet that week after school. So that was super nice because she really cared and wanted to meet with me, and I really wanted to meet with her, so we were able to make it work. I think one other really big thing right now, especially since we're applying to colleges, that has been a big process, and having Miss Yee be really accessible over email, and she's super active and answers my questions really quick, was super helpful. So if I have a question, I'll chat her really quick on my email, and she usually gets me back really quick, which is super helpful with everything going on.
Awesome, thank you. And Claire?
Yeah, so sort of like outside of like counselor stuff, there are other ways that like the school has allowed for us to stay engaged. I know that I felt really bad for all the freshmen. I was like, how are you going to make genuine connections over Zoom? But I know like I run cross country, and we've been reaching out to the freshmen and kind of making friends with them, having them make friends with each other, just so like when they do get back on campus, they feel like even though, I don't know, maybe they're in their second year of high school already, they still have those connections. And I know other people are doing that too. We have the Pilot Pods program, which freshman pilot pods are led by upperclassmen or campus ministry team, so that it's not just all the freshmen sitting in a room quietly. There is like a little bit of organization to kind of get them, like get an icebreaker going, get people to get to know each other, even though it's a little bit harder virtually.
Thank you. And Ellie?
Yeah, one thing that's really been good is that because we're all online, the teachers sometimes, or I'm a part of campus ministry, so sometimes she'll like check up on me and stuff like that, and then we just like chat on the phone. And sometimes one thing I found really difficult during shelter in place or just having everything online is like in the morning we have Wednesday meetings for CMEB, and sometimes I don't wake up because I'm just like, I set the alarm and then I'm like, wait, what's today? And I'm like, no, I'm fine. I still have like a little more time. And then I realized like, oh wait, I just had a meeting. So then she would call me and then tell me what's going on. But she's like really understanding. She's like, now you're like stressed and tired with school. So that was kind of nice. And then I'm really bad at math. So I've been getting help from my AP stats teacher in the morning sometimes. And then we also have the flex periods, which is nice. And no one goes. So it's like private tutoring, which is really nice. And I've really enjoyed doing that. So if you like really set out the time to do it, the teachers are like really there for you if you need the help. And it's just even better like in person, obviously, because like they're actually in person and there to teach you. But it's definitely not the same online, but they're still like really helpful.
Thank you. And Israel?
Yeah, like Mr. Gunty said, the new schedule has really been accommodating to like student activities, student events, and so now that clubs are once again starting back up, we've been able to meet more frequently with our clubs and make new connections and new friends with our club members, and so that's really a cool thing that we've been able to implement that we weren't able to implement so much last year. And so, being part of like the board game clubs or the video game clubs, we now get those those little moments on Friday afternoons, where we can just like chat with each other, play games, and have fun, which is something that's been missing during the shelter in place.
Absolutely. And finally, Kellen.
Like everyone else has said, I really was kind of surprised by how structured our new schedule was and how everything would just like, everything was set for a time that had like purpose to it. And I really appreciate the lunches being a little bit longer just for us to get a break from sitting in a chair for so long, because we're like in a chair for like 6 to 7 hours a day along with the homework that we get. And also like the academic flex periods that are time for you to go to your teachers and like engage with like other students through like student life activities. And that's something that I like really enjoyed throughout distance learning, is the fact that like student life is so present, because it makes us all feel connected and like talk to other students outside of like the classroom, because we don't really get to talk when we're in a classroom on Zoom.
Thank you, students, and thank you so much, Mr. Gunty. Your comments and feedback this morning have been super helpful, and so we appreciate that. And we're now free to take some admissions questions as well. So if you have any questions about our admissions process in these last few minutes, please feel free to ask. And we just want to briefly touch on our upcoming event opportunities for students and parents to engage with us. So tomorrow, actually, we have our second open virtual visit for students. So we are on Zoom with an SJ&D teacher and current students, kind of doing a fun, engaging 80-minute session. A lot of schools are setting up virtual visits for their entire 8th grade, but if your student is attending a school that is not doing that, we would love for them to join us. And we'll be doing it tomorrow. On October 14th, we will have our second information session of the year, which covers our STEM program. So we'll be talking about science, math, and kind of technology and engineering. We will have SJD teachers and students talking about that as well. And then kind of our bigger event at the end of October on the 25th is open house. So we'll be providing an opportunity for families to kind of watch a little SJ&D movie with all of our community a part of that, and then having a live session on that Sunday, October 25th, for families to kind of get their questions answered, which we think is really important. So we appreciate everyone's time. As always, please feel free to reach out to myself, Mrs. Graybeal, Mr. Obligacion, throughout this admission process, and we will be happy to meet with you and just to talk and answer any questions. So thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.